So this presentation is going to look at biodiversity. And biodiversity is simply the variety of different living organisms found on the planet. So the objectives we're going to be looking at are these. Explain the concept of biodiversity. And this involves a discussion of genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. And we're going to discuss the importance and maintenance of biodiversity. It can be intrinsic, with direct and indirect values, including medicine, natural products, tourism, and so on. And explain how species biodiversity is related to the stability of an ecosystem. So discuss factors important to maintaining species diversity. So, levels of biodiversity then. We have species diversity, which is a number of different species in an area. And most often when we talk about biodiversity, we're referring to species diversity. We have ecosystem diversity. This is the variety of habitats, communities, or ecological processes within and between ecosystems. And then we have genetic diversity, or the different genes contained within all the members of a population. Remember, some species have a high level of genetic diversity, and others is fairly restricted. And if the genetic diversity is low, then the ability of that species to adapt to changing conditions will also be low. And also because genetic diversity is low, the species will be more vulnerable to diseases, which might destroy the entire community. So species level biodiversity, the number of different species. So now, for example, tropical rainforests have a high level of species diversity. The cockpit country in Jamaica has a high level of species diversity. And areas which have a high level of species diversity need to be maintained. Because different species have a large number of different values. And remember, things like ecosystems are more stable if species diversity is high, because all organisms won't be dependent on a single one. There'll be fewer of the so-called keystone species. Remember, a keystone species is a species which, if removed from an ecosystem, will cause that ecosystem to collapse. So, importance of species diversity. So it's important for the stability of ecosystems. It has recreational and aesthetic value. It's pleasant just looking at the different varieties of living organisms. Things like plants, they can be used in gardens to make a garden attractive. Species are important for research and academic studies. They can have medicinal value and used as natural products. Or for tourism. Remember, tourists come to Jamaica to look at all the different species of fish on coral reefs and so on. Also, there's a high variety of different birds, and some people come just to look at the birds in Jamaica. Then you have ecosystem diversity. You have a variety of different ecosystems, and different ecosystems provide different ecosystem services. So, well, you can think of providing oxygen in rainforests, cleaning the atmosphere, cleaning fresh water, preventing erosion and water pollution, cooling the atmosphere, bringing rain, reducing hurricanes. And as I said, different ecosystems provide different ecosystem services. And therefore, if the number of ecosystems declines, there'll be a decline in the ecosystem services provided. And therefore, the entire planet becomes less stable. So, examples of ecosystems, you have desert, coral reef, prairie, tundra. And in Jamaica, there are coral reefs, mangrove swamps or mangrove forests, tropical rainforests, such as the cockpit country, dry limestone forests. And all of these ecosystems contain different organisms and have different ecosystem services. So coral reefs, for example, prevent many important functions to a country such as Jamaica. They provide a high level of species diversity, and species from coral reefs are being used to develop anti-cancer drugs, cures, it should say, not curses, for arthritis. Let's see if I can change that right now. Cures for arthritis. Few slides low. Cures for arthritis, bacterial infections, and viral infections. Help support commercial fisheries and provide employment for people in fishing. Provide the main source of attraction for tourists. They buffer the shoreline against storm surges and reduce levels of beach erosion. And however, coral reefs are under threat from pollution and habitat destruction. And some people who are fishing will use dynamite to catch fish, and the dynamite will destroy coral reefs. It takes hundreds of years for a coral reef to develop. And mangrove forests also act as a buffer and protect coral reefs from pollution and land erosion. They provide a breeding ground for fishes and many invertebrates, and provide a habitat for many species of bird. So mangrove forests are important to maintain species diversity. Other examples of ecosystem diversity can have rivers, coral reefs, and tropical rainforests. Then genetic diversity is a range of genetic material present in the population of a single species. The Mauritian pink pigeon had a population of 10 in 1991. And because of conservation efforts, the population is rising. But all the pink pigeons today originate from this small group, and therefore the species diversity is going to be low. And the pink pigeon its population could easily collapse if a certain disease comes about, because all of them will be susceptible to the same disease. And that's an example of genetic diversity in bananas. That's genetic diversity in corn. And genetic diversity is important because it could ensure that all certain groups of individual species or populations will be able to adapt to certain environmental factors. And besides having to deal with environmental conditions, genetic diversity renders the ability to resist emerging diseases and epidemics. And that basically finishes this presentation. So at this point in time, we can stop.